The Brave Evolution is all about you being brave enough to dig deep and face the fears, face the ugly, and face the horrible cards you were dealt, and allowing those beautiful jewels deep inside of you to take root and to grow. Hi, brave souls. Welcome back to the Brave Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Chantel Hampton, and I am thrilled to have a good friend here with me. We were just saying that we haven't seen each other in almost 10, 12 years. And I know I interviewed maybe a few months ago another friend where we all met around the same time, Quante Turner at WPI. But I have Yetti here. Hi, Yetti. I'm so glad to have you. So glad to have you. So glad to see you again and glad to have you here. I'm just going to read your bio real quickly and then we'll get into it. So, Yetti of Yettisays has been a much needed voice within the mental wellness space since 2010. As a writer, healer, and creator of Mission Self Love, a wellness product line, Yetti provides her community the tools and support needed to effectively take better care of their mental well being. By sharing her journey to health and happiness over the past 10 years, Yetti has built a loyal community of women looking to take charge of their own joy while helping to undo the stigma surrounding mental health within the Black and Brown community. Yetti, thank you again so much for being here with us today. And I'm super excited to talk to you. I have to say I'm also proud of you because I remember you from that 2008, 2009 era of WPI days and the stress and the craziness and the workload there. But you were always, no matter what you were dealing with and going through, I just remember you lighting up the office, you and Adiva, but coming in, lighting up the office with your smile, your laugh, and your nails.
Still got him. Still got him.
So I just want to say I'm proud of you because I remember you talking about starting and wanting to write again and starting your blog back then, and to see how you launched it and you've been writing ever since. Super proud of that. That's like, it's super encouraging, and I'm proud of you for that.
Thank
So
you so much. I really appreciate that, especially because like a lot of people that I interact with now, they see me as Yetti now, but they don't know from back in the day, like my engineering days, how badly I wanted to do this. So thank
yes. Of course, of course. So speaking of WPI and your engineering days, I want to go back there. What was your major and what were you studying while you were there?
My major was management information systems with a minor in computer science. And I feel like I went through multiple different majors, but that's the one that I settled on. Tech will always have like my heart.
That's awesome. And I mentioned before, like, just how intense it was. But what made you, like, during that time, I remember you like always saying you wanted to write, and what made you finally come out of like are you still in tech, I should ask? Are you still in computer science in some way or no?
No, besides, my own website. I decided to leave my job last year. I was a product manager. I left my job and decided to take a leap of faith on this wellness business that I have been building for the last couple of years. Um, but what made me start writing and what finally made me launch that blog, I mean, I've been writing and blogging since the age of 14, 15.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm not new to this.
Yeah.
But being in college, I was very much so trying to kick the habit of self-mutilation and cutting, and writing really helped me make sense of my feelings.
Hmm.
And when I started blogging anonymously in high school, that's how I came to understand that I wasn't the only person, that did
Right.
these things or felt this way, and that's something I was craving um, while at WPI, because WPI you guys are family, like always will be family. But we all need to belong to multiple different communities. Like there are some things that I was going through that people WPI or I felt at that time just wasn't going to, they weren't going to understand.
Right.
And I had had experiences that had showed me that. And I think what it really boiled down to was one, wanting to just express myself, get it out from my head and my chest. And then also, I think I was seeking community.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And I just from what I've read and what I've seen of your work, I feel like you found that community.
I did.
And it's beautiful. Um, you have always been very transparent, and that's one of the many things that I loved and appreciate about you. I remember reading a post that you made last year saying that you were celebrating 3 years of no self harm. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about that story?
Yeah. So last October, I made it to 3 years of no cutting, which is really, really big for me because I have been self mutilating since the age of 11, 12.
Wow.
Not really knowing what it was. I just knew that when I was upset with myself or I felt like I did something wrong, I am a recovering, not recovered, recovering people pleaser.
Mm,
So when I felt like people were upset with me, mad at me, and I used to seek not the validation, but the approval of my father.
mhm,
I come from an African background. And if I got a B and he wasn't happy, I would like it started like pinching myself, pinching, scratching, and then it turned into cutting, in
mhm.
which um I had a whole bunch of razors, eyebrow razors. And if you look at my pictures from high school, you knew I was not using them for my eyebrows because my eyebrows were absolutely wild. They were wild in high school. But I had them and I was storing them in my bedroom. And it was actually, so a little background story. You and I met when we were actually in high school of Pride Productions.
I remember that.
Yeah. So it was during that time period where the cutting really got bad because high school is rough. You're trying to fit in. I am black with a sometimes British accent because I'm born from England, and I moved here and there was so many changes happening at once. It just became comfort for me. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is self-harm is like it is a comfort tool, but it's also an addiction. So
Mm,
you kind of crave that pain, you kind of crave chaos.
mhm,
I wish I could explain it a little better, but um, I continued to cut throughout high school. I slowed down a little once my parents kind of became privy to it because a guidance counselor did call home. And when I got to college, between trying to like reinvent myself, going to college, being in a relationship, and being in such an intense program that WPI is. Like we have 4 terms, like we have finals every 7 weeks, we have midterms like 3 weeks into each semester. It's
right,
crazy. That was the only way that I could keep up with my classes, my depression, my anxiety was bottle it up, cut myself, and then okay, the problem's solved now. Throw it to the side, get back to business. And the guy I was dating at that time, he actually helped me to somewhat quit. And it just kind of spur back up again, being lonely and depressed while living in New York and trying to, do corporate America as a 20 something year old.
yeah, wow,
But I made a promise to myself this last time around that I'm going to quit, but this time I'm going to quit for me, not
right, right,
because someone said I should or what it looks like, just because. I don't like walking around in the summer with long sleeve shirts,
Right,
you
right,
know, and it stopped having the same effect. I stopped having like a release or relief after I cut myself. So it's just like, why do I keep doing this? And so
right, right.
that's what it's been for the last 3 years.
Wow. I'm proud of you for making that choice for yourself because I feel like that is the most important part. We all have our things that we do and use to cope, and we all have, if we're honest, these addictions um, to these coping mechanisms. Some are just more in other people's eyes definitely harmful, and especially with that, but I've watched my little sister deal with it. I've watched so many other teens deal with it, and especially it involves usually a parent and the desire to please someone. And I know even for myself, mine wasn't necessarily self-mutilating, but it was in another way. I guess it kind of in a different way, it's been an addiction to work and getting the affirmation of doing more, doing and doing until you drive yourself into the ground. And so making the decision for yourself, like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore, it's huge, and it really is a turning point because now it's about you not anybody else. So I'm
Right.
super proud of you for that, super proud of you.
I appreciate it.
Course. I know mental health awareness and the prioritization of it in the Black community throughout the decades has been somewhat avoided, and often avoided like the plague, especially based around your background and your culture within the Black community. Why do you feel as though our generation is changing that narrative, and why are you changing that narrative?
Um, I think the answer to both is the same thing. We're tired of struggling behind closed doors. Like, it's not fun, you know, having to maintain multiple different faces,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? Um, I feel like us millennials, we get a lot. We get a lot of critique for how we do things. You know, we don't stay in jobs very long, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also the ones that are very much so pioneering healing.
right,
We're recognizing that we don't want to continue a cycle that we were born into. Um,
right, right,
and not necessarily intentionally either. You know, our parents can only do the best with the knowledge that they have at that time. Um,
right.
and for me, um, I had a suicide attempt in high school, and I will never forget like having a conversation with an African relative where it's just like, you know, we don't do that. Like,
Mm,
that's for white people.
mm,
And that really stuck with me because now it's like something's wrong with me.
mhm,
And so now I'm internalizing this feeling and I'm wearing this label that like I'm broken, like something is wrong because this isn't normal, you know, for us Black and African people. Like, we don't do that. And it wasn't until I had an ex shame me about it and going through a series of other traumatic events and landing in therapy where it was just like, no, this is a real thing. It's called depression.
mhm,
It can also show up as anxiety, you know, and many people are dealing with it.
mhm.
And it hit home for me when one of my blogging friends committed suicide in
Mm,
2014. Her name is Karen Washington. She was the founder of For Brown Girls,
wow.
and the Red Lip Project. And so I think, I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, ASAP, Rocky, or
Yeah.
whoever, one of the ASAPs, said something about Black women should not wear lipstick, red lipstick, like it's too much. And she turned it into a whole project, but none of us knew that she was suffering
Wow.
inside also. And then to find out from news outlets that she had passed away. And that was the first time I think I really went on the blog, like, you know, I've tried this shit too. You
Mhm.
know, I've tried this. And for some reason, like I'm still here. And so I want to be able to use my voice so none of us have to go through this.
Right.
And something I call it the Me Too factor. Most of the times we think we're going through what we're going through on our own. But
Right.
once we start talking about it, we find community. We start to see
Right.
that, hey, it's not just us. And that also lessens that feeling of brokenness if something is
Right.
wrong with me.
Right.
And so that is why I do it, because if someone was speaking about it as frequently and as honestly and going to the nitty and the gritty and the vulnerable moments like I was, it
Yeah.
would have saved me many a suicide attempts. It would have saved me a lot of pain.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that people like yourself, even with this podcast, I mean, dealing with so many people are dealing with health issues. They're dealing with things that and mental health is a part of those health issues. And we're dealing with stuff on a daily basis that if we don't talk about it, if we don't get to the bottom of what we're dealing with emotionally, don't get to the roots and pull those out again for ourselves, we implode and we start to implode. And yeah, girl, I'm like, we definitely, I watched it happen in my father. Um, and I've seen it happen in other family members where they just would not, they would talk, but they would be almost resistant to like professional help. And so I made a vow to myself that I will get as many therapists as I need at this time, because we're going to talk through this. We're going to be self aware. We're going to deal with these issues and not allow them to build up, because that's when you have no one to talk to, like you said, when you have no one that you really truly identify with, it becomes very lonely and the isolation makes it worse. So I'm glad that you're highlighting that, and I'm hoping that the older generation, they're still here. A lot of them are still here. I'm hoping that they become more open, and I feel like they're starting to,
I
but more
think they are.
open. Yeah, I think that you've noticed that too.
I've noticed it. I can have conversations with my dad, which is weird, but I love it because he's super open to it and he understands, like, this is a part of, our lives now.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing.
Right.
That is amazing. What advice can you give other youth or teens who are dealing with the or in a similar position as you were? And what about their parents and families too? So the teens and then their families.
For the teens, if you feel comfortable or when you feel comfortable, let someone in, let someone know. Um, for me, I don't know if you ever met JoJo. Did you meet JoJo?
I think I did meet
Lord,
Georgia.
yeah, I think
Mhm.
you did. She was part of Pride Productions too. And she is the one that actually encouraged me to write. Um, we both, not necessarily both going through traumatic things, but we both found comfort in writing.
Mm.
Her modality was poetry, mine was creative writing, and then eventually just simply journaling. And I know she didn't understand, at the ripe age of 14, 15, what was
Right,
happening, but I never, not once, felt judged
right.
about it. I felt cared for. And um, I think that's what we're looking for. A part of it is like a coping mechanism, and sometimes it really is a cry for help. And sometimes you just want someone to be around, someone that you can be open with, someone you can be vulnerable with, someone you want to talk to. So if you find someone that's comfortable enough, start talking to them
Yeah,
and let them in. On top of that, also make note of the things that make you happy.
yeah,
Try to find try to anchor the things that bring you joy
yeah,
and incorporate more of that. Um, those would be my top things, just because it's so easy to it's so easy to fall into that slump. I remember coasting through an entire summer and not feeling happy. But there
Mm,
were things that I had to be happy about, you know? So trying to find your joy, try to practice some gratitude. And if you're spiritual or not, like meditation, speak to God, pray, those type of things, because you, like you said, you cannot get through it on your own.
oh, yeah. That's very
Um,
great advice. Yeah. And then, like, what about their parents and families when they find out? And
the first thing is to listen. Do not react in intense ways. I think that's what led me to be more secretive about it, was the
hmm
reactions I was getting. I was like, okay, bet I need to get really more sneaky about where I place certain items, where the
yeah,
location of the cuts are. Like a lot of my cutting, which is terrible, do not do this. I would do them in creases, you know, so people can't see them, but they also don't heal.
mm,
So it's just like you're in constant pain. Um, so don't react in such an intense way unless it's pure like love and comfort.
yes,
um be a listening ear. Like, this is something huge, they're about to let you in on. Listen, and then seek the appropriate care that you can. And this is, it's no, I don't want to offend anybody, but professional like therapy. Because like for me, it was like offered to me, if like go speak to my pastor. I'm like, I don't want to go and speak to my pastor. I don't want more people knowing, but like a therapist
yeah,
is a neutral place that you can go, you can offload, and as long as you're not harm for yourself, those secrets remain
yeah,
secrets. You know, you
exactly,
feel more comfortable, and then they can help guide you.
exactly.
And I think it would be very beneficial, because, like you said, a lot of the times it is tied to people pleasing, it's tied to a parent, that the teen has their individual therapy time, but they also have family therapy. Because how do we tackle this as a whole? It's not
Yeah,
simply the teen's problem.
right, right. Exactly. That is excellent, excellent advice. Thank you. Excellent advice. Um, with that, can you explain just this is I'm wrapping up, but can you explain a little bit about your what Yeti says, and then Mission Self Love, what those are about, and how people can learn more about you and get involved with what you're doing?
So Yeti Says is my blog, and it's exactly what it is. Yeti Says. My blog started off as "And So She Writes," but it was a weight loss blog. um, and then I realized like losing all this weight didn't make me feel any more better. Didn't make me feel better about myself. Didn't make me love myself anymore. I switched it to Yeti Says, in which um, like I own what I say, you know, on these posts. I own these happy stories. I own the sad stories. I own the stories that are not very easy, you know, to read. But this is my truth.
Right.
So yes, Yeti Says is my blog and my brand, and Mission Self Love is the line of affirmation cards that I created for my 30th birthday. It's also when I decided to stop cutting. So I don't think I've told anybody that. um,
Wow.
but that was my gift to myself. Affirmations saved me from me several times. I fell in love with affirmations in 2011, 2012. And I just wanted to create affirmations that resonated with people that look like me,
Mm-hmm.
um, that may possibly have the same struggles as me. And it has grown into so much more. I'm getting ready to do like my first retreat, and it's just, yeah, mission self love is exactly that, reminding you to keep self love and self care as a top priority.
Awesome. And I have to say, your affirmation cards are beautiful. Like, the way they're written, the affirmations themselves are powerful. Some of them are funny, and I'd be like, yeah.
That was the thing. I wanted them to be written in my voice, because
Yeah.
like some of the stuff is like great. It sounds real Oprah-ish, but some of us a little bit ratchet, you know?
Yeah. No, but I love it. I love it. And just the way they're put together. It's just so well thought out. And you've always been that way. Just like everything was just always well thought out. And I love that. I appreciate that. Um, like I said before when I was talking to you about being on this, being a part of this podcast, the audience and what we're talking about is all about being brave. And I think you exemplify bravery and just being brave enough to be vulnerable and to tell your story. One, like so many people would be embarrassed and I find or hide and not talk about it. But it's so important that you're talking about it and sharing because again, so many people are going through it and dealing with it. So thank you for your bravery. Are there any other is there any other advice you can give to my audience about like taking brave steps to put themselves out there, tell their story? If there is a story that they're hiding and they're not sharing, how to tell their story and just like the first steps on how to do that.
So the first steps in how I'm telling your story, I believe that we're all storytellers. Okay, I do. We just have to tap into it. Um, Sharing your story is really difficult, especially in the public eye. So something that I would tell you to do is start journaling it. Move it from your memory into a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can journal it. You can do video. I do a lot of like video journals because sometimes I can't be bothered to pick up the pen. And from there, use little tidbits and drop them and see how people react. But the most important thing is feeling comfortable in your skin. You
Mm-hmm.
know, don't just share because you should. Do so because you're ready. It's a story that
Yeah.
you're ready to release. There's many stories that might we might take with us to the grave, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
there's stories out there that are healing to other people, and those people are only going to receive that message from you. So
Right.
remember that when you're both guarding some of your stories.
That's great. Great advice. Lastly, what are the next steps for you? Do you have anything in the horizon that we should be looking out for or anything you want us to pay attention to?
The next steps for me, honestly, I'm kind of like in an incubation period. I'm really, really pouring into myself.
Great.
Um, so I don't really have much that you should be looking out for in the future, but what I do have is some bomb affirmation cards.
Yes. Can you tell us how to get them? Tell people how to get
Yes, you can get them at yettisays.com/shop. I have a line of 5. I can't even believe I'm saying this. I have 5 decks of affirmation cards, guys. Who am I?
them. You're amazing. That's awesome. Okay, so yettisays.com/shop. Awesome. Um, any final words before we close out?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me.
Cool.
Honestly, a lot of our conversations and watching you, my goodness, you said that I was well put together. You had a million and one things going on at the same time. And I remember with multiple phones, us
Oh my
dialing
God.
you in for 106 and Park when you performed,
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I was thinking, just like, she follows her dreams, like, no matter what. Like, nothing is going to deter her from doing what it is that is in her heart. And I think I've always tried to reflect upon that and use that to push me. Like, is this in
Wow.
line with like what I want to do for myself? Because you were relentless. No one was going to tell you anything. Like me and Adiva would be at rehearsals with you. You know what I mean?
I
So
loved
thank
you
you
guys.
so much for being like a really great example for what it can look and feel like when you're true to yourself and you're true to your passion and purpose.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. You can make me cry.
I was gonna break out into the choreography. You know, me and the diva still remember it.
I know y'all do. We need to have a reunion. We need to have a reunion. That would be amazing. But no, I appreciate that. That in itself is encouraging because I feel like in this stage of life, a lot of times the older we get, sometimes the practicality tries to sit in. Um, and even in this stage of where I'm at and what I've been dealing with health wise, like I was dealing with health stuff back then at WPI too. And I just remember pushing and fighting through a lot. And so here in this stage of life where I'm like, God, I'm getting older and I'm still dealing with this and I don't want to do nothing.
Mhm.
But I find myself like slowly, it might be not all night, not staying up all night writing or anything, but it might be those moments where I do take time to like get up and go into my room and record or do something, and get on my computer and I'm still always trying to push. So that in itself, so you saying that encourages me because I feel like I need to keep that in the forefront of my mind now to keep me going. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you.